In 2003, the CIA classified a document titled Analysis and Evaluation of the Gateway Process, which delves into the theoretical background and potential benefits of the gateway process, including improved focus, intuition, and problem-solving skills. Although it is an older paper dated June 9, 1983, it is extremely interesting, with the concepts within its pages confirmed by modern developments in science, quantum physics, and neurobiology. Why was this hidden until now? What are the secrets of our mind, and is the whole world one gigantic hologram? We will try to find out together in the episode of Secret Origins. Welcome. Are you ready to dive deep into the mysteries of consciousness and energy? Unlock the secrets of the mind and explore the uncharted territories of the human brain. The Gateway Process is a training program developed by the Monroe Institute, which aims to help individuals achieve altered states of consciousness, access higher states of awareness, and explore the nature of consciousness. The process is based on the work of Robert Monroe, a pioneer in the field of consciousness exploration who is best known for his research on out-of-body experiences, OBEs. The Gateway Process combines various techniques, including relaxation exercises, guided visualization, meditation, and the use of hemisync audio technology. Hemisync refers to the process of synchronizing the brain's two hemispheres through hypnosis and biofeedback and transcendental meditation combined with binaural beats, which are specific sound frequencies designed to entrain the brain into certain states of consciousness. The Gateway Process explains consciousness in a profound and analytical way and combines knowledge from mystics from Hindu, Buddhist, and Tibetan cultures with modern scientific knowledge of Planck's distance, Einstein's theory of relativity, and the work of Niels Bohr, the man who received the Nobel Prize for merit in the study of atomic structure and quantum mechanics. At its core, the Gateway experience is a training system designed to bring increased strength, focus, and coherence to the amplitude and frequency of brainwave output between the left and right hemispheres, so that ultimately consciousness escapes the limitations of time and space. The mind can then synchronize with more complex and rarefied energy levels in the universe, accessing the various levels of intuitive knowledge that the universe has to offer. It is about the idea that individual consciousness comes from the collective consciousness, using the frequency vibrations of the being in which it resides. This goes for humans as well as whales and fungi and amoebas. Everything. Mystics of the past and present, including all ancient religions, understood these concepts thousands of years ago. Yet, nowadays, it is difficult to be accepted from the minds of the most pragmatic, self-conscious people. But can we really understand what consciousness is? Where does it come from? How is it formed? Science now knows that both the electrons that spin in the energy field surrounding the nucleus of the atom and the nucleus itself are composed of nothing more than oscillating energy grids. Solid matter in the strict construction of the term simply does not exist. Rather, the atomic structure is composed of oscillating energy grids surrounded by other oscillating energy grids that are orbiting at extremely high speeds. Itzhak Bentov is an inventor, engineer, and writer who is known for his work in the fields of biofeedback, kinesiology, and energy medicine. One of Bentov's most notable contributions is the development of a biofeedback device that records the heartbeat, specifically the reverberations of the aorta. In his book, Stalking the Wild Pendulum, he provides the following information. The energy grid that makes up the nucleus of the atom vibrates at approximately 1022 Hz, which means a 10 followed by 22 zeros. At 70 degrees Fahrenheit, an atom oscillates at a rate of 1015 Hz. An entire molecule made up of multiple atoms bound in an energy field vibrates in the range of 109 Hz. A living human cell vibrates at approximately 103 Hz. The point is that the entire human being, brain, consciousness, and all is like the universe that surrounds it, nothing more or less than an extremely complex system of energy fields. The so-called states of matter are actually variations in the state of energy, and human consciousness is a function of the interaction of energy and opposite states. Motion versus rest. Energy creates, stores, and derives meaning in the universe by projecting or expanding certain frequencies in a three-dimensional mode. This creates a living model called a hologram. But do we know what holograms are and what their meaning is on our consciousness? The idea of the hologram, which is a three-dimensional image created by the interference of light rays, is used as a metaphor to describe certain aspects of consciousness and the nature of reality. This idea has also been used to explain some phenomena such as the phenomenon of quantum entanglement, in which particles can be connected in such a way that the state of one particle depends on the state of the other, even if they're separated by large distances. The concept of a hologram can be most easily understood using an example cited by Bentov, in which he asks the reader to visualize a bowl full of water into which 3 pebbles have been dropped. As the ripples created by the simultaneous fall of the 3 pebbles spread outward toward the rim of the bowl, Bentov further asks the reader to visualize that the surface of the water has suddenly frozen so that the ripple pattern is instantly preserved. The ice is removed, leaving the 3 pebbles at the bottom of the bowl. The ice is then exposed to a powerful, coherent light source, such as a laser. The result will be a three-dimensional model or representation of the position of the 3 stones suspended in the air. Holograms are capable of encoding so much detail that, for example, it is possible to make a holographic projection of a glass of swamp water and see under a microscope the tiny organisms that cannot be seen with the naked eye when examining the glass of water itself. The whole concept of holography, despite its scientific applications, has only been known to physicists since the basic mathematical principles were developed by Denis Gabor in 1947. He later won a Nobel Prize for his work. The laboratory demonstration of Gabor's work did not occur until years later after the invention of the laser. As biologist Lyle Watson explains, the purest kind of light available to us is that produced by a laser that sends out a beam in which all the waves are of one frequency, like those made up by a perfect pebble in a perfect lake. When 2 laser beams touch, they produce an interference pattern of light and dark waves that can be recorded on a photographic plate. And if one of the beams, instead of coming directly from the laser, is first reflected off an object like a human face, the resulting pattern will be very complex indeed, but still recordable. The recording will be a hologram of the face. The part encodes the whole. The part contains the whole, and the whole is contained in the part. Of further importance is the fact that even if we drop our frozen wave pattern hologram on the floor and break it into several pieces, each individual piece will recreate the entire holographic image by itself. The smaller the piece, the fuzzier and more distorted the resulting holographic projection would be. But the fact is that the entire projection will still be preserved. The key to creating any hologram is that energy and motion must interact with energy at rest. In the example above, the pebbles represent energy and motion, while the water, before being stirred by the pebbles, represents energy at rest. In order to activate or indeed understand the meaning of holography, energy, in this case a coherent light source such as a laser beam, must be passed through the interference pattern generated by the interaction between energy and motion and energy at rest. In the simple example given by Bentov, this requirement is met by holding a frozen interference pattern in front of coherent light to project the three-dimensional holographic image, its sense, into space. As Marilyn Ferguson, editor of the Brain Mind Bulletin, tells us, another feature of a hologram is its efficiency. Billions of bits of information can be stored in a tiny space. The pattern of the holographic photograph is stored everywhere on the plate. The matrix of consciousness. The universe, which is a gigantic hologram of incredible complexity, is made up of interacting energy fields, some at rest and some in motion. The matrix of consciousness is a term that refers to the idea that consciousness is not limited to the brain, but instead is a fundamental aspect of the universe that is present everywhere, and that the brain is essentially a matrix, or filter, that decodes this information and creates the subjective experience of reality. The idea of a matrix of consciousness is based on the concept that consciousness and the physical universe are interconnected, and that consciousness is not simply a product of the brain, but is a fundamental aspect of reality. This idea suggests that consciousness is not just something that comes out of the brain, but is an integral part of the fabric of the universe. What role does the matrix of consciousness play in shaping our perception of reality? According to the theories of Carl Pribram, a neuroscientist at Stanford University, and David Bohm, a physicist at the University of London, the human mind is also a hologram that tunes into the universal hologram through the medium of energy exchange, thereby deriving meaning and achieving the state we call consciousness. In terms of states of expanded or altered consciousness, such as Gateway uses, the process goes like this. As the energy passes through various aspects of the universal hologram and is perceived by the electrostatic fields that make up the human mind, holographic images that are transmitted or projected onto those electrostatic fields of the mind and perceived or understood to the extent that the electrostatic field is operating at a frequency and amplitude that can be tuned and therefore read, the wave pattern of the energy carrier passing through it. Changes in the frequency and amplitude of the electrostatic field that surrounds the human mind determine the configuration and therefore the character of the holographic energy matrix that the mind projects to receive meaning directly from the holographic transmissions of the universe. Then, in order to understand what the holographic image is telling it, the mind proceeds to compare the image it just received with itself. Specifically, it does this by comparing the resulting image of that part of its own hologram that represents the memory, registering the differences in geometric form and energy frequency consciousness perceives. As psychologist Keith Floyd says, contrary to what everyone knows, it may not be the brain that produces consciousness, but rather consciousness that creates the appearance of a brain. This is quite similar to the theory of biocentrism, proposed by the American scientist and physician Robert Lanza. The theory suggests that life and consciousness are fundamental to the nature of reality. Lanza argued that the universe and physical reality are not separate from the life and consciousness, and that consciousness is responsible for the creation of the physical world, and without consciousness, the physical world would not exist. The theory also suggests that the universe is not deterministic, but instead is shaped by the observer, and that the observer plays a major role in creating reality. The process of consciousness is easiest to understand if we imagine the holographic input with a three-dimensional grid system superimposed on it so that all the energy patterns contained within can be described in terms of three-dimensional geometry, using mathematics to reducing data to two-dimensional form. Bentov states that scientists suspect that the human mind operates on a simple go, no-go binary system, like all digital computers. Therefore, after superimposing the three-dimensional matrix on the holographic information it wishes to interpret, and reducing that information mathematically to two-dimensional form, it can fully process it using its fundamental binary system, just as any human-made computer can process volumes of data and make various comparisons between the data and information stored in its digital memory. Our minds work the same way, perceiving only by comparison. Bentov formulated the proposition as follows: our whole reality is built up by constantly making such comparisons. Whenever we perceive something, we always perceive only the differences. In states of expanded consciousness, the right hemisphere of the human brain in its holistic, nonlinear, and nonverbal mode of functioning acts as a primary matrix or receptor for this holographic input, while working in phase or coherence with the right brain, the left hemisphere provides the secondary matrix through its binary, computer-like mode of functioning to further screen the data by comparison and to reduce them to a discrete two-dimensional form. To the extent that Gateway succeeds in bringing about a refinement of the energy matrix of the mind, it succeeds in expanding or altering human consciousness so that it can perceive without resorting to the mediation of the physical senses, so that more and more of the universal hologram can ultimately be perceived and understood. Marilyn Ferguson has written that Pribram and Bohm's theories seem to explain all transcendental experiences, paranormal events, and even normal perceptual oddities. She goes on to say about Pribram, currently he's proposing a startling, all-encompassing model that is generating considerable excitement among those intrigued by the mysteries of human consciousness. His holographic model marries brain research to theoretical physics. It accounts for normal perception and simultaneously takes the paranormal and transcendental experiences out of the supernatural by explaining them as a part of nature. Like certain strange discoveries of quantum physics, the radical reorientation of this theory suddenly makes sense of paradoxical sayings of mystics throughout the ages. To complete our outline of the process by which the mind attains and exercises consciousness, we must also describe the mechanism which accounts for the aspect of human thought that distinguishes it from the consciousness of plants or animals, i.e., self-knowledge. People not only know, but they know they know. They're able to observe their own thought process and become aware of it. In addition, they can perform benchmarking, evaluating the functioning of their thought process against various objective standards that they have adopted. Human consciousness can do this because it has the ability to duplicate aspects of its own hologram, project them, perceive this projection, compare it to the memory aspect, where its standard of measurement of evaluation are stored, of its own hologram and measure or sense the differences using three-dimensional geometry, and then binary go, no-go. Does our consciousness really play a central role in shaping reality? And as the holographic principle suggests, is the universe a projection of information encoded at its boundary? The implications of the theory discussed in this episode would be enormous and have the potential to revolutionize our understanding of consciousness, reality, and the mind-body relationship. So, the next time you look at the world around you, remember that you may just be looking at a holographic projection created by your own consciousness. We bow before you and thank you for watching another episode of Secret Origins. Keep your minds open, and until we meet again.